Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day two of our Illinois Gambling Summit. We are thankful to have you here with us. We hope for those who came on yesterday that you enjoyed the day and that we know that you're going to enjoy today. I guess I should have introduced myself. I am Kelly Gage with the Illinois Department of Human Services, the Division of Substance Use Prevention and Recovery, and I work with our gambling program. So we are very grateful to have you here in this space this morning. Before we get started, I introduce our speaker for today, who we are in for a treat. I want to remind everyone just of a couple of housekeeping tips, which is to mute yourselves first and use the chat box to say hello and use the question and answer box for your questions so we're able to identify your questions quickly. So beyond that, I want to introduce and give all the time he needs to our speaker today, which is Cam Adair, who is an international speaker and entrepreneur who is widely hailed as a leading expert on video game addiction. He is best known as the founder of Game Quitters, for those of you who may have heard of Game Quitters, a support community for gamers from 95 countries. In 2020, he co-developed the Intensive Gaming Disorder Clinical Training Program, and his work has been published in psychiatric resource, reported in government hearings, and been featured in New York Times Magazine, Forbes, BBC, NPR, CNN, and more. In 2017, he was named one of Canada's leaders in mental health. And Adair Cam is an international speaker and he's an entrepreneur, which I've actually stated already. So I want to give him all the time he has. Cam, thank you for joining us this morning and go for it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here as always, and I am going to give you as much as I can over the next hour to help you understand what is this whole gaming world, video games. How do we understand gaming addiction? And how do we really understand this digital generation, which is much of what I really believe is the future at the moment? So today you'll learn emerging trends in gaming and gambling. You'll learn game design features that are designed to increase engagement, player motivations and monetization schemes, risk factors for problem gaming, along with practical strategies for prevention, treatment, and recovery. I got into this work through my own personal experience. I struggled with a video game addiction for about 10 years, and that culminated in me eventually hitting rock bottom and needing to turn my life around. Initially, when I started gaming, it was just a fun activity that I did, after school and after I played hockey. I would go home and play video games. I like to play games like StarCraft and World of Warcraft and Counter Strike, games that were more competitive, where I got to compete against other players and try to be the best. Initially, I'm the first generation of boys who grew up with high speed internet and online gaming. So I still remember when we had dial up internet. And in order to play video games on the internet, you had to basically not have anybody be able to call your house. And that's an interesting concept a little bit because in some sense that was a natural built-in pause to gaming, because after you played for an hour you had to stop so mom or dad could see if anyone was trying to call the house, and then you could start again. Whereas once high-speed internet was widely available, it was no longer the case. And my gaming started to become a problem when I began to experience a lot of bullying, because the bullying made me feel like I wasn't accepted at school, at hockey. I was struggling to fit in. I was struggling to feel like I belonged. And for me, it was like, well, if this environment sucks, which was school or hockey, then why wouldn't I spend all my time in an environment where I felt awesome, which was in gaming? In gaming, I got to feel like I was really good. I got to see my improvement, and I'll talk a lot about motivation behind gaming here. But for me, it was like, why would I continue to spend time in places where I was like just experiencing a lot of negative emotions and experiences when I could just avoid all of that by playing video games. So I actually dropped out of high school, and instead of going to college, I was gaming up to 16 hours a day, all day, every day. And eventually, uh, long story short, we're very short on time today. I wrote a suicide note, and it was that night when I realized I need to make a change. And that change for me really honestly began by quitting gaming. I knew that if I didn't stop gaming, I would never do anything else. I would just play and play and play because for me, it's very difficult to feel any level of fulfillment or satisfaction with the amount of games I'm playing because for me, it's just never enough. I want to play more and more and more and really just to play every hour possible. Long story short, when I went through my own recovery journey, I published my story just kind of thinking like I could share it maybe for someone else out there who was struggling. And I began to hear from tens of thousands of people all over the world who were saying they were also struggling. And the interesting part about this group was it was mostly young men, 18 to 24 years old, college students or should be college students, who were coming forward saying, I need help. What can I do? How can I improve my life? Now, what's interesting about that is that typically, if you're working with clients, you are far more likely to have the family come forward looking for help than the gamer themselves. But a lot of my experience was gamers themselves seeking help, looking on YouTube and trying to find answers. And that led to just creating a website called gamequitters.com where we tried to just all come together as players and support each other and help each other identify how we can move forward. How do you find new activities? How do you find new friends? How do you really just improve your life? And that's kind of spawned all of this now, which is interesting to look back on, to say the least. One of the core concepts I hope you take away today is that the gaming world is the real world. There isn't a difference anymore between the real world, as we like to call it, and the gaming world. These worlds are the same. The experiences that people have online or in digital games are the same type of experiences they have in other activities, in other areas. There can be some problematic aspects of it, which I'll talk a lot about, but the experiences they're having are very genuine, they are meaningful, and much of, for instance, an adolescent or a teenager's social life now exists within the platform of the quote unquote gaming world. So the gaming world is the real world, and we need to be able to approach it as that sort of experience if we want to reach people who are spending the majority of their time there. And just to illustrate this, if we look at who plays video games in 2021, is it just young boys? Is it teenage girls? What about grandma? The truth is, it's almost everyone is playing video games. 83% of teenage girls play regularly, and almost all boys. To me, that means that's the next generation of college students. It's the next generation or the current generation of high school students. It's the next generation of the workforce. It's the next generation of people who are getting married and raising families. These are gamers. And it doesn't matter if it's someone who's young or it's someone who's old, everyone is playing in some way, shape, or form these days. Now, the split demographic wise is about 50-50 between males and females. The average age of a gamer is about 33 years old, and the average player has been playing for 14 years. In another couple of years, that average length of time a player will play will continue to increase due to the fact that players start so young these days. I started at 11. Today, that's almost like a modern day miracle. Kids start at 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old. Gaming is introduced to them as a very normal part of their life, the way they learn through education, the way they socialize, the way they spend their free time. The global gaming market is over $150 billion worldwide, and mobile revenues account for 50% of that, which is a really important number to understand, which I'll share more context as we go forward. Nearly half of all players play daily, and more women 50 plus play video games than men, and they are more likely to play every day as well. Now, one of the interesting things about senior gamers is that they may not identify as being a gamer. They may play, grandma may play Candy Crush on her iPhone, but not identify as being a gamer, whereas some players will identify as being a gamer. And so, even that alone is if we're asking people uh, if they're if we're asking people if they're a gamer, well, we might want to be careful about that language because they may not identify as being a gamer even if they play video games. Now, people play for different reasons. They play to escape, they play to socialize, they play to feel a sense of achievement, they play to feel a sense of purpose, and they play to be creative. Now, games are also fully immersive and they provide hyper stimulation. Some players identify with being a gamer and develop attachments in their identity towards it. Others don't identify but still play. Gaming is also a safe place to fail. The quote unquote real world, failure can be permanent or irreversible. If you fail an exam or a test, you may not get to do it over again, or it may take many months. Whereas in the gaming world, if you die, you press restart, you try again, the risk is a lot less for there to be consequence for your effort. Gaming is also a community and a culture that you belong to. I think this quote really sums up part of why people can play video games so much, which is it's just easy to love a world where improvement is guaranteed. When you're playing a video game, you're getting feedback for all of your effort. If you are playing pretty much any game, it's going to tell you if you're doing well or not. It's going to teach you how to play it. It's going to give you badges or missions completed or experience points or even visuals across the screen with leaderboards of how you were doing. And that sense of being able to improve is it makes you feel good. Excuse me, especially when there's a limitless amount of improvement that you can make, and it's very accessible. For me, I can open up my smartphone, start playing a video game, and instantly start to feel good about myself. Whereas to do that same action, with school may take many months for me to experience that same sort of feedback. Now, I see a bunch of questions about the slides, and if you email me, I'm happy to provide the slides. It's cam@gamequitters.com. Ultimately, game developers and game designers design their games to offer players a better reality. If the gaming world is a better reality than the physical world, then players will spend more time there. When you make a game, you don't worry about what users want or what they need. You obsess over how they feel. When your product is a game, people don't just use it, they play it. They find it fun. They tell their friends. They fall in love with it. Now, this is a quote from a CEO of a of an email app, and they too are seeing how they can create their product to be more like a game, because when you make it like a game, it helps people feel a certain way. They tell their friends, they fall in love with it. And I think this is another key idea, which is that video games are digital products optimized using persuasive psychology to make money. So if you're designing your product or you're designing your game using persuasive psychology to engage players, to get them on your platform within your game, the goal, the incentive is that the more time someone spends within a game, the more money you can potentially make from it. And we'll talk a lot about reasons why. The best apps are now games. It doesn't matter if you're looking at just social media or employment, work apps, mental health apps, finance, fitness, or even education. All of these popular apps, popular products have game design. And the best games teach through feedback. Now there are some problematic characteristics of game design that we want to be aware of. Constant rewards and immediate gratification. The accessibility is a big part, especially for someone like myself who really likes to see improvement. The hyper stimulation, the excitement, the bonuses, the near wins. There's all this excitement. It's provided with audio and visual cues, and the level of flow that you can experience in a game is just much greater than the sort of presence or flow you can experience in the physical world. If I just look around my room right now, you know, my room, there's nothing happening. Whereas if I turned on League of Legends, there's all this stimulation, all this action, this fast paced energy, and that really consumes my attention. Games are also able to consume all of your time. There's an unlimited amount of time that you can spend playing different games, and they have infrequent transitions. The immersion can help you forget problems and escape from your reality. For me, when I was playing games 16 hours a day, when I was playing, I didn't have to think about how bad my life was. The problem was when I turned the game off and I looked around and my life was in a really bad spot. And all I had to do to get away from it was to turn the game back on. The problem was, as much as it allowed me to escape, it didn't fix any of my problems. So my anxiety, my depression continued to get worse and worse and worse. And then I wrote a suicide note. And although gaming was allowing me and providing some benefit in the sense it allowed me to escape, it also allowed me to avoid. And that avoidance eventually, became a serious situation. Games also can provide a consistent purpose and a routine. When I was playing World of Warcraft, I would wake up at a certain time and I'd have about an hour to play before a friend would log on, and then we would play all day. And we had a routine. It was almost like a work like structure. And that gave me a sense of purpose. It gave me something to look forward to. In a game, you kind of almost always know what you need to do next. And so that can be very motivating, especially if in the physical world, you're maybe struggling to know what you should do next, or uh, the opportunities you have aren't as exciting. Now, not everyone who plays has a problem. Most people who play are fine. And we call this the gaming continuum. So there's recreational play, at risk play, problematic play, and then disordered play. About 90% of gamers are recreational. They don't have any problems. It's just fun, it's casual. About 10% of gamers fall into that at risk category, where maybe they're starting to see some problematic aspects of their play. Maybe they're at a point where they're playing more and more and there's a bit more conflict at home. About 3% of gamers fall into more problematic play, and then about 1% of gamers are more disordered. And gaming disorder is now officially recognized by the World Health Organization. It's characterized, importantly, by first, impaired control over gaming, next, gaming taking precedence over other interests and activities, and continuing to play despite the occurrence of negative consequences. It's very important when we're evaluating if someone has a gaming problem that we're not just looking at how much they're playing, we're looking at what's the negative impact or the functional impairment that is occurring because of it. For me, I was playing 16 hours a day. I dropped out of school. I was pretending to have jobs. It was causing major issues with my family. It was also perpetuating serious depression. That's a very different situation than just I like to play for 3 or 4 hours a day with my friends after school. We have to evaluate the negative consequences and really look at if gaming is contributing to a functional impairment in different areas of life. Now, there are certain risk factors that will make you more vulnerable to potentially having a gaming problem. The The first is if you're more impulsive, especially with how games now have a lot of monetization within them. You can experience a lot of financial harm if you're more impulsive in a game. The anxiety, social anxiety, or depression, that can perpetuate you escaping into games. ADHD and autism can also be risk factors. With ADHD, the risk is someone who maybe struggles with transitions, especially off of a hyper stimulating environment, that can cause a lot of challenges to get off games, or it creates a lot of conflict when you're trying to get off games, especially with an adolescent. If someone struggles with low self-esteem, they're more likely to begin to fulfill their self-esteem needs through their game characters. And the online world often becomes a more reliable means of experiencing a higher sense of self, specifically because you're able to curate your experiences in the digital world much more than you can curate your experiences in the physical world. Peer pressure, there's a lot of peer pressure now. We'll talk a bit more about it. The escapism, more chaotic or insecure environments, single parent households where there's less monitoring or less ability for parents to help maintain a balance, less structured routines and schedules, and people who are more vulnerable to want to compete. Some of the warning signs we want to be watching out for are things like preoccupation, withdrawal symptoms, cravings, urges to play, mood swings. Tolerance is typically viewed as needing to play more and more and more. But today, with a lot of the monetization, you want to be looking for, are they spending more and more money to feel the same level of excitement that they once did? Are they unable to control their gaming? If they're able to control it, it's pretty easy to prove that. But if they're unable to control it, if they're unable to limit, it's a different story. Often for an adolescent, especially, the first thing that will go when they start to play more and more are their interests in other activities, especially sports. Now, with COVID, obviously, all these considerations have changed quite significantly. At home right now, gaming is the way they're able to stay in touch with people. It's the way they're able to kind of spend their time. There's lockdowns, or there's an inability to go do traditional sports or other activities they maybe once did. Schools remote. And so I think that that has changed things quite dramatically. But I do think we want to be looking at, if gaming is the only thing they want to do and there's no other interest in any other activity, especially if they find it boring, that's a side where you want to see, okay, maybe the level of stimulation they get in games is creating a riskier lifestyle for them. Deception, especially stealing credit cards, stealing money, lying about when they're playing, staying up all night, waking up in the middle of the night to play to try and get away with it, using games to escape or relieve a negative mood. And if they've jeopardized or lost, serious opportunities in school or work or relationships, that's also something. I lost a girlfriend playing video games. I had no interest in participating in the relationship anymore. I just want to play more and more. Now, games have traditionally been stigmatized quite heavily by society. The stereotype of a gamer has been that they're lazy, they're wasting all their potential. Like, why do you play all those video games? Those aren't your real friends. And this has created a lot of defensiveness within the gamer community. Gamers feel like it's us against the world. And that, on one hand, brings gamers closer together within their culture. And on the other hand, makes it harder for clinicians or parents or loved ones or teachers or mental health professionals to engage with them. And so it's very important that when we're working with young people around these topics, that we're taking that context into consideration. Be curious about why they're gaming. Be curious about what the benefits are that they feel they're experiencing through it. Be curious about maybe some of the things that they find are not as fun within the game. Pay attention to the types of games they play and ask them a lot of questions. If you approach a gamer with genuine curiosity, they'll often teach you a lot about how the games work or what their experiences are within them. And that can provide you a lot of insight in how to help them keep it in balance. Okay, so now we want to talk a bit about some trends and insights. So we have a bit of an overview of what the gaming world is, how many people are playing. So what's the latest and how do we understand it? The first thing to know is that it's more than a game. There is a human game interaction. There is the experience of someone playing a game, and that informs a lot. However, people spend just as much time playing the game themselves as they do watching other people play. They do that on websites like Twitch and YouTube. So, for instance, someone might stop playing video games, but then they find themselves just watching YouTube all day long instead. Or someone is playing the game and watching YouTube at the same time. The watching people play games, the streaming, the content creators, it's a really big part of the gaming ecosystem. Just like esports, which is competing in games. And I'll talk more about it, but that's also a really big part of what makes up gaming. So in today's day and age, gaming is a platform, it's a world, it's something that people are not just engaging with themselves, but they're watching other people play. It's an entire culture, which is very important to really just grasp the scale of and some of the benefits and some of the risks. For instance, peer pressure. If everyone at school is playing video games and you are the kid who's not playing video games, maybe you're a social outcast now. Maybe people have a hard time fitting in. I have constantly heard from people who like maybe don't even really want to play games, but they do because if not, they don't get invited to hang out with friends. And that can also mean that they can feel guilty if they have to leave a game early to go for dinner with mom and dad, because that means that maybe it's going to hurt the team. Maybe all their friends' rankings are going to be disrupted because the player had to leave early. And that can create a lot of pressure for someone to be playing at a certain time, and to be involved, also to spend money, because nowadays with how easy it is to spend money in games, the uh, kind of skins, which I'll talk more about, the virtual costumes are a form of social status. And so, for instance, if your character doesn't look cool, just like maybe the kid at school, decades ago who had the cool sneakers or the cool clothes, the same thing's happening now with games, where you might be bullied for not having a cool character, or you might feel a lot of pressure to buy things within a game so it reflects well on you at school. Now, this tweet by Henrietta Bowden Jones I thought was really enlightening. So she runs the NHS gaming clinic in the UK. And she said she had a phone appointment today with a child on a waiting list for their gaming clinic. I thought his reluctance to enter deeply in meaningful conversation with me might be due to anxiety. But no, his mother just called, and apparently he was gaming and watching gaming on YouTube at the same time that he was in this therapy session. Now, we call this multi screen use, which is using multiple screens at the same time while gaming. On my TED talk about video game addiction, I get comments occasionally, which is like listening to this while I'm playing a video game. And this is nowadays with multiple monitors how a lot of people are playing. On one hand, they're playing a game on their phone, they're watching someone play, and maybe they have a YouTube video up as well. This increases the immersion experience, it splits their attention, and again provides a hyper stimulation. So it's not just playing the game and getting stimulated, but watching a player as well and just really being involved. Now, when they're watching people play, they're watching streamers, content creators, and influencers. And this is really important to understand because often now we just focus too much on someone playing a game and not on the influences they have around them. So streamers are playing a video game and or interacting with their chat, and people are watching. They can support through donations and subscriptions and brand partnerships. Now, the key with influencers is that they may prime their audience to materialism and the lifestyle of money, which you will see here in a moment. Today's games kind of look like this. They're on your phone and they're increasingly monetized. Part of how that's happened is through free to play games. So the iPhone came out and it revolutionized the gaming industry because it introduced a free to play model where games could now act as a service. Traditionally, you bought a game for 50 bucks and you got the game and that was the end of it. But today, games are typically free to play, and then you can spend money within the game in order to get additional items, characters, different bonuses, missions, or consumables. And you get them through virtual currency, which occasionally is earned in the game, but often you're paying real world money to get. And just to show you how substantially games have changed, I'm going to show you a trailer of NBA 2K20. Now, this trailer came out last year to promote the new NBA game, which is a basketball game. And someone had taken the video and uh, changed the actors within the video to be children, because this game is targeted to kids and is rated appropriately for kids. So just watch this trailer quickly, and I want you to pay attention to what experiences are they promoting, what experiences are they showing are the experiences that someone gets to do when they play this game.
Let's see what the world has to say about the morality of a trailer like that. If you were to feature children in this trailer.
Open loot box. Everyone loves it. Ooh, legendary! Oh, no! Oh! Yes! I've been wanting.
Now, why I think this is so important is because games are changing very rapidly, far quicker than regulations can keep up and far quicker than research can even keep up. Even clinicians can keep up. So if we just look at NBA 2K20, this is a basketball game that a lot of parents would say, oh, wow, my kid's playing basketball. But then within the game, these are the mechanics that exist, which are spin the wheel to get the player you want, buy loot boxes to get the player you want, go enjoy the arcade. And the label for the game is rated E for everyone, which means it's appropriate for kids as young as 3 years old. And the only real label about the game is that it has in-app purchases, and someone might say damn in the game, like the horror of that. Now, just to share quickly the crossover between gaming and kind of culture, just yesterday, Fortnite and the NBA announced a partnership for you to now be able to purchase your favorite player or favorite NBA team's jersey within the game Fortnite. And it's a way that they were promoting the NBA playoffs. And so gaming and culture are merging very, very quickly, but so are games and gambling-like experiences. And a big reason why they've done this, the monetization scheme that companies have begun to implement are focused on the Bartle types. Now, the Bartle types are about different player motivations. And so if you can identify different players and why they like to play, and then you can provide experiences for them to purchase based on those motivations, you'll be able to succeed very well. And if you look at the gaming industry, it's currently growing rapidly every single year, over $170 billion, I believe now in 2021. And if you look at COVID, like the gaming industry was one of the big winners. So as more people are playing, they're playing for more hours, they're spending more money within the game. The Bartle types, there's a couple different ones. The first is the achievers. They like to achieve within a game. Then there's the social players. They like to socialize and kind of express themselves. Then there's the people who like to be competitive, and then there's the people who like to explore. Now, what we've begun to discover is for achievers, you want to sell progress because they like to continue to progress within the game. To social players, you want to sell the ability to customize their character. And to competitive players, you want to sell the opportunity to win. Now, for people who like to explore, sell them additional content. The most profitable of these is selling progress to achievers. Now, if you look at a game like Fortnite, Fortnite has something called seasons. Within seasons, basically the game changes every 8 to 10 weeks. All your progress is reset. All your missions are reset, and you start from scratch again. Now, within 8 to 10 weeks, if you played the game all day long, you wouldn't be able to achieve everything that you want. But then your progress resets and you get to go again. A lot of that is designed around selling the Battle Pass, which is a way that Fortnite makes a lot of money. It's selling progress to achievers. Now, the type of gamer you want to be watching out for someone who might have a problem, is the escaper, because the escaper is someone who is more at risk of developing a gaming disorder or a co-occurring disorder with games. Now, Jonathan Pennickett here shares that he blew his university savings on FIFA, on a video game. And how is that even possible? Well, it's possible because of the monetization schemes that games are now implementing. And one of them is around loot boxes. And I'm sure that many people here are familiar with loot boxes, and I'm not going to go too deep into them. However, what I want to kind of just illustrate today is that loot box design is finding its way into other areas and other industries. Now, I know Ted's here, and Ted's heard me speak since my very beginning of my career when I spoke at the Nevada Council. And at that time, we were talking about different ways that loot boxes were going to become in like fashion industry and in clothing, and we're beginning to see it. Amazon now has a mystery box that you can order that contains a perceived value within the box. There's a number of other ones. I won't go into them today, but pay attention to the trend as we go forward of loot boxes, which has been a very successful mechanic in games to increase monetization, finding their way into other industries. Now, if you're not familiar with what loot boxes are, they're mystery items that can be bought with real world money that provide randomized rewards. These rewards can be common or rare or even legendary. There's different types of loot boxes. Some are skins like costumes, virtual costumes, and others are more pay to win, like in the game FIFA, where you're opening packs of players, hoping to get a really good player, and then the different players that you have make up your team. If you don't have good players, your team won't be able to win. So you need to spend a lot of money to get a really good team to be able to win. Now, we know that adolescents who gamble are more likely to engage in skin gambling. And skin gambling is taking the skin that you've got from a loot box and then betting it on different websites, on different esports matches, or just trying to get a really valuable skin that you can then sell for real world money on a third-party website. Now, research has been really kind of one direction when it comes to loot boxes, which it's found they're psychologically the same to gambling. There's a link between the amount that gamers spent on loot boxes and the severity of their problem gambling. And within the top 5% of spenders, 45% were problem gamblers. Now, loot boxes are in a lot of games these days, and especially most games that are rated appropriately for children. So this is an example of a skin on the left. Here's the Ninja skin. So Ninja is a top streamer, a very popular gaming celebrity, and Fortnite and him partnered so that if you want to look like your favorite streamer, your favorite gaming celebrity within the game, well, you could buy the ninja skin. This is another example, which is a sniper rifle in the game Counter-Strike Global Offensive, and it can sell for over $2,000. Now you open skins, or you in CS:GO, for instance, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, throughout the game, when you're playing, you will get random drops of crates. So you'll get cases. And then in order to open the case, you have to buy a key. And that will typically be for about $2.50. Now, you can see here that these are the different items or skins that might be in the case. You don't know exactly what you're going to get, but if you pay a bit of money, you can find out. Now, one of the things that a lot of streamers have identified is that opening loot boxes is extremely entertaining for content. And we're beginning to see a lot of trends of this sort of content coming on YouTube and coming on Twitch. So this is a streamer in the white mask named Anomaly. Now, he's a popular streamer where what he discovered was opening loot boxes helped his content go viral. And he has a weekly show with his father called Drunk Unboxing, where him and his dad will get drunk and they will open hundreds of loot boxes in the hope that they win different items. And this is a really short video that will kind of walk you through it.
We are going to open 100 Chroma cases. For each grotto, Papa takes one shot. I made a video long while ago about the case odds. A knife is 0.25% approximately.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, that's not the grotto.
It's not.
Let's get you a grotto, Papa.
Let's get me drunk.
Oh,
Whoa. Bing!
Papa got it finally.
Chip!
Papa's a piece of shit. It's literally empty. I don't think that's gonna be a knife, Papa.
Could be.
Oh my god, Papa! Oh my god! Flip Doppler phase 2! I'm literally shaking, do you see? Cheapest one in this pattern is 250! I spent exactly 250 euro on this case. Papa, I love you. The drunk case openings we do are literally the best.
I know.
We all...
I love it too.
Looking at it as a whole, we got Karambit Doppler, Factory New, StatTrack, Galil, Chatterbox, that's like 10 euro though, but it's very rare. Flip Knife Doppler, and a Galil Chatterbox. High five!
That's a good night.
Yes!
Now, part of what I want to kind of share here is number one, the animation of opening loot boxes is basically the same as a slot machine. And that is the animation and the experience that players are receiving when they're opening these loot boxes and they're spending money in games. Now, what happens is a kid will come to mom and dad and say, hey, can I get, $20 to, buy something in a game? And you're like, yeah, sure, here you go. And not understand that is the experience that they might be having. All these loot box animations are like that. They have the same audio and visual cues as a slot machine. At the same time, someone who is watching streamers can also be exposed to these sorts of experiences. Now, I'm not here to say whether or not someone should be watching this sort of content. It's incredibly popular, and I can share a lot of examples. But this sort of content is normalizing this sort of behavior. And it's often, if you're working with a client and you don't fully understand the types of content that they're actually being exposed to, you could be missing a lot of context of what their relationship or their experience in games is all about. So here's Anomaly, 3 million subscribers on YouTube. And, I took a screenshot of this. Here it is, one of his latest videos. I collected every skin in CSGO, and he says he spent over $100,000 to do it. Now, here's another popular YouTube channel where he has content around slots and he has content around CSGO. And I find this really interesting because that's the content he's making. It's slots and it's unboxing or it's loot boxes. Now this content is becoming increasingly popular, and even a couple weeks ago, one of the top YouTubers, Mr. Beast, also made a YouTube video on opening the world's largest mystery box, and he said it was worth over $500,000. Now, some of the risks are that this can be a trigger for people who are vulnerable to gambling, and it can cause relapse or worse. And also watching streamers can also distort the potential for someone to be able to do well, because it will encourage them to spend their money too. Now, I know we're running out of time, so I want to quickly talk about esports, which is organized competitions for games. In the US, over 2,000 colleges and universities now have esports clubs, and there are more than $20 million in scholarships that are available. At high school, there's over 4,000 high school esports clubs, and middle school esports was announced last year. This year, we will see elementary school esports be announced, and the Olympics is also looking at it for 2028 in Los Angeles. So esports will be the same as traditional sports. There will be an infrastructure from kids as young as possible all the way up to amateur and professional levels. There's nothing necessarily wrong with esports. There are some risks though. Now, just to show the scale of how much this has changed, in 2010, this was the championship for League of Legends, and on the right is 2017 with a sold out stadium. Now, there is a dark side to esports, which is a quote from a player who's earned the most money ever in the game. And the risks are things like burnout, physical injuries, excessive play. Ultimately, the chance of going pro is extremely low. So if you are in an area where they have an esports club, or you're working with a client who is gaming a lot because they want to be an esports player, it's very important that they have a backup plan and they're doing it with a lot of mindfulness, just like if they're pursuing the dream of being in the NBA or being a professional in any other sport, the intention that goes into it needs to be really high. And then watching esports also comes with some risks of just being exposed to a lot of gambling advertising. So this was a tournament where every 2 minutes there was a pop-up about esports betting, and the advertising was even added directly into the game on its map. And so esports betting has also grown a lot over COVID, and young people are exposed to it more and more. Now, greater viewing of esports was associated with greater involvement in gambling, and we know that adolescents who gamble are more likely to engage in skin gambling, often because it might be a loophole around them needing money to withdraw. So here's an example, different skins that are worth different values, and the opportunity to bet those skins on different matches. Now, in 1 minute, I'm going to talk about prevention and treatment. A couple of things. Screening. Here are some different scales that you can look at for screening. And there's also a really good study on screening and assessment tools for gaming disorder. If you send me an email, which is cam@gamequitters.com, I'll send you these slides, and I'll also send you this, I'll send you the screening tools. It's important to evaluate non-standard criteria as well, which is multi-screen use, indirect gaming, financial expenditure, and influencers. I think that all of those are very important, especially if you're working with gambling clients who they may be playing video games, but you may not be aware of what exactly they're doing or watching within those games. For harm reduction, be aware of choosing different games based on ages and values, set limits on time played, and specifically on in-game spending. Keep a balance. If gaming is a balance in your lifestyle, no big deal. But if it's beginning to have harm, of course, that's something we need to address. FOMO will be really, really strong, especially for teens and adolescents, especially because gaming is so social these days. So we need to be addressing that as well. It's important for them to find new activities that fulfill the same needs that gaming fulfills. Gaming is very good at fulfilling a lot of different needs in one thing, and often you might need a balance of other activities to combat why you like to play video games so much. So for instance, I like to DJ. DJing is immersive, it's stimulating, it's creative, and that really allows me to kind of be in a flow with it in the same way that I like to experience a flow in a video game. Families need to take this topic seriously and be aware that excessive restriction can be a risk factor for a gaming problem. A lot of families struggle with setting boundaries around this topic, or parents are just not really taking gaming as seriously as they need to, or they have double standards where parents are on their tech all the time and kids are on their tech all the time, and that's where a lot of clashes are happening. And here's some suggestions for policy. We need more research, we need more prevention, we need more people who are willing to be trained and equipped on this topic. Gaming is not going anywhere. It's going to be incredibly relevant as we go forward for this digital generation. And we really need people to become equipped to make sure that we prevent a crisis from occurring. Game Quitters has a lot of resources that can help you do that. And I also share a lot of updates on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, feel free to add me and stay up to date. And Intenta has the gaming disorder clinical training with a certificate, and it's available on intenta.digital. Send me an email and I'd be happy to send you some information on it. But thanks so much for listening.
Fantastic. Cam, thank you so much for that informative presentation. You have definitely heightened our awareness about gaming. I want to take a quick station break to do our poll for this morning, and then we're going to jump into the questions as quickly as we can. So we're going to go ahead and launch the poll. It's just a check-in to make sure we got you here and we have your attendance noted. So just answer the question as quickly as you can, and we will move to questions for Cam. All righty. While that is going forth, Cam, I have some questions here for you. The first question that we have is there any research on 50+ women in gaming with progression versus males? Similar to the telescope effect with gambling, late onset, faster progression? That's the question.
Yeah, so there's some research that's coming out about that demographic now. I think the biggest one is that demographic is often playing mobile games, and mobile games, especially games like Candy Crush, are certainly more monetized, and with your credit card already attached to your iPhone as an example, it's easy to spend money within those games. It's also easy for that demographic to justify spending money because maybe it won't impact them as much. But just like we know that that demographic, especially females 60+, is a risk group for gambling problems, I think gaming is increasingly going to be relevant for that group and is often overlooked because they don't look like a gamer and they don't identify with a gamer, although they play.
Okay. Cam, you're coming close to home here. So we're going to move to the next question. Can you speak to gaming in the context of people who play games like Words with Friends? I think the questioner asked, I think there are many people obsessed with it who don't think of themselves as gamers, and it kind of piggybacks to what you just stated.
I think that it's important to recognize that, like, you know, even the question of like, what is a game? I could spend an hour just talking about that. Is playing chess a video game? I play chess. It doesn't really cause problems for me, but I also don't start my day by playing chess, right? I'm able to keep it in balance. Whereas World of Warcraft, I can't keep it in balance. It's just all consuming. So Words with Friends or Scrabble, like, do those count as games? Are they on your phone? It becomes a question. The key, though, is identifying that different types of games may be more of a risk for different types of people. So Words with Friends, unlikely to be as much of a problem for me, but Counter-Strike would be more of a problem. So sometimes you can help people shift to different types of games as well. But even games that are like labeled educational also have a lot of these problematic characteristics in them nowadays. So don't take the label as truth. Make sure you investigate the game and whether or not it's safe for you and your kids.
Good feedback. Another question is, there are a plethora of 12-step or fellowships that are out there. Is there a 12-step fellowship for gaming addiction?
There are a few out there. So CGAA is one of them, and
Mhm.
Organon as well. Those fellowships are out there. Gamers themselves aren't always as open to 12 steps as a intervention or a recovery tool, partially because this issue is so new that if I struggle with alcohol, going to meetings or going to 12 steps is very much a normalized part of that recovery process.
Mhm.
Whereas for gaming, that's not the same. And so I do know a lot of gamers can feel very defensive about the
Mhm.
idea of 12 steps. However, many others find it very valuable. And so
Yeah.
I think just approaching it with, a bit of mindfulness can help.
Great, great. I know we have just a few minutes here left, and there's quite a few questions. If we don't get to your question, please know we'll share them with Cam so we can get responses to those and share with the group. The next question is, with all the stimulation, is there any research connecting gaming disorders with seizures?
With seizures, I haven't seen anything specifically on that I could speak to from a compelling standpoint. I'm sure that it happens. And so obviously if someone is more vulnerable to that, they should be careful for sure.
Absolutely. Okay. I'm going to get this one in here. I actually got a couple minutes. Have you or anyone looked at kids shows like Paw Patrol, YouTube, stars like Ryan, and how they may play into video game addictions or similar behaviors?
Yeah, I showed a Ryan clip at one point to illustrate how because the gaming industry argues that mystery boxes or loot boxes are the same as Kinder Surprise eggs. And there's this great video of Ryan opening Kinder Surprise eggs on YouTube. And so you can see the difference. But the I think the context of this question is these influencers, especially if they're kids, are just introducing the concept of games and the different behavior around games to younger and younger audiences, which means that these topics are going to be extremely relevant for this generation, even though at school there's like almost no prevention material around this. School counselors aren't really equipped, they've received no training. And so I think that we have to understand that kids from like a very, very early age will not only be playing games from them being introduced from their family, but the influencers and streamers they're paying attention to will also be introducing that and creating what their perception is of the world. And so these are incredibly relevant topics I think we have to pay more attention to.
Absolutely. The last question, there's two, I'm going to merge them together. The question is, are there blocking devices, technology for such gaming? And then are there resources in Spanish?
So there are blocking software. However, most kids or teens are going to be more tech savvy than their parents. And so the blocking software is very easy to get around. So you can use it as a patterned interrupt, or you can use it as a supplemental tool, but don't rely on it too much because it ultimately it's not going to solve the problem for you. There's a lot more that goes into this. And so that's important. I have a couple resources in Spanish, but I'd like to have more. So if anyone's interested in that, feel free to reach out and I'd love to chat.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cam. We really, really appreciate you being here. There's so much information. There's other questions I'm sure others could have put into the chat box. His contact information is on our website for the conference, for those who may have asked about that. We are going to take a break, a 10-minute break now. And for those that were the Zoom is going to go away, but remember to go back to the website, go to sessions and click on the next session at 10 o'clock. So we want to have you all back in the space. So make sure you click on that space that you used to get in here, but for the next time slot. Cam, thank you again. We've got to bring you back. Bless you and keep speaking the truth, okay?
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.